Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ger Dooley. I'm the Programme Manager and Learning Support Officer for the UCD Smurfit School's Masters in Management Online. We have a great panel discussion organised for you here today. It's going to be, me asking some questions to our panelists, getting replies. Hopefully it'll feed into more of the student experience, which is what hopefully those of you attending are interested. In many ways, this is an accompanying piece to a session that we had a few weeks ago in which I spoke in more detail about the program and the technicalities of it, how it all works online and things like that, and via the magic of technology. If you are watching the recording of this right now, a QR code will appear on screen right now, which will be able to bring you to that webinar, which was recorded a while back. So if you want more details about how the program works, if you're watching the recording, feel free to pop out your device and scan that QR code on screen. I would like to introduce our panelists today. I'd like to introduce Michael. Michael is a career manager in the UCD Smurfit Careers Network. He's a key piece in the whole cog of the Smurfit School. And look, we'll come to it in a while, and Michael can explain more about what he does and more about what a master's in Smurfit full stop, but this particular master's in management can do for oneself for their career. I want to introduce Amy. So Amy is Patient Advocacy and Liaison Services Coordinator with the HSE here in Ireland. Amy's really recently finished her studies. Yeah.
Yes, delighted. We got there.
She's going to formally graduate in December. I'm also delighted to be joined by Brendan Crowell. Brendan is moving into the second year of his studies, and he's based in Missouri in the United States, and he's a project manager for the North American Strategic Operations Team at Hitachi Energy. So thank you so much, Brendan, for joining us today. Whereabouts in the world are you today? I know you travel around a little bit too.
Yeah, I'm actually in Toronto this week.
So first of all, let's take a look at the background of the Smurfit Schools through the prism of some of our numbers. Okay, so we are based in Dublin, a city which, if you need reminding, is renowned for being a global hub for technology and industry. We, the Smurfit School, we are the arm of University College Dublin's College of Business that caters to graduate students. And the Financial Times placed us, the Smurfit School that is, as the 23rd best graduate business school in Europe. So we're just behind Cambridge's business school. We're ranked number 1 in Ireland. And UCD itself is ranked within the QS Global Top 100 Universities in the world. In that same rankings from QS, we rank 25th in Northern Europe and 47th in the world for sustainability. And so that's something we are exceptionally proud of here in UCD. So why would someone undertake this program, and who really is it for? So, people join this program for an absolute myriad of reasons. As we've discussed, the Smurfit School, it's Ireland's premier business school. Having a degree from us will future-proof oneself for, whatever comes into the future, whatever comes for someone's career. And we all know things are a little bit volatile with lots of technological innovations happening right now. And people are, the horizon of 5 to 10 years might be a little bit less clear than maybe it had been 5 to 10 years ago. So people are keen to future-proof themselves and take a qualification which, has a broad and general base and allows them to go forward in as many directions as is possible. People want to build upon their prior non-business related qualification with a more management specialization. So, some of our students, they may find themselves stuck at a point in their career where maybe only a qualification in management will get them that one step forward. Some other people want to change their careers altogether, and some other people are satisfied to future-proof themselves, as I just mentioned, and they don't necessarily know what they'll use the program for, the qualification but they know that it will be absolutely useful for them, whatever the case or whatever the future may hold. And oftentimes, people recognize that now is the right time for them. They may have been very busy for many years in building up their career, and taking on part-time graduate studies may not have been an option. People may have been in a position where they have had caring responsibilities for children or younger people, or maybe even for older people as well. And a lot of our students found themselves in a position where they're kind of in that sandwich generation where they're they've caring responsibilities for younger and older people. And the time to do a program such as this really wasn't an option. So that demographic very much, a program such as this and the flexibility that it offers very much appeals to students like that. This program, regardless of the person's commitment levels outside of study and outside of work, we hope that all students will be able to craft their own study schedule to achieve their own goals on the program. So I'm going to bring in Michael now, as I mentioned, Careers Manager with the Smurfit Careers Network. This is your cue, Michael, to give us just a little bit more details in what kind of demographic do you see from people taking part-time master's qualifications from the Careers Net or from the Smurfit School, and how it sits within people's aspirations for their career?
Sure. So, Jared, just I suppose the question. So we would kind of look at it early to mid-career kind of folk who would come our way in terms of the part-time management course. It is a wonderful opportunity for people who are probably, time poor. So you would have people who are, very busy in their careers, and maybe at that point in time, it's not necessarily possible to come and do a full-time on-campus program. As much as we probably would love to see people on campus, sometimes it's just not possible. And so that's where we see people coming from. A lot of people from tech backgrounds, all sorts of backgrounds. But generally, they tend to be quite busy in their function, and they tend to perhaps use the program then to kind of, empower and in some way drive a shift in their trajectory. As quickly as possible. And this also then, from an employer's perspective, is really good, because at least we see people who are very keen, very interested, and if you're lucky enough, sometimes even employer might even sponsor or part sponsor a program in this regard. But the beauty of this kind of program also means you can have people from all different backgrounds, of all different nationalities. That's the potential. And so having those people in the mix, in the study groups, sharing their experiences is really what defines sometimes the success of these programs as well. But if we're looking at it from a career directory perspective, you had people who are looking to power on in their current role, in their current organization, or you might find people who are sponsoring themselves and they're looking for a career transition. It could be from one function to another. So you could be looking, maybe you're an engineer and you realize, okay, well, I don't want to be the subject expert, for the rest of my life in engineering. I want to get more involved in the decision making, more of the strategy of an organization. So I might use this to help me move into that kind of a transition into that role. You might even want to use the program to transition for location. So there's many, many reasons why, that people come to us, and this is the kind of career conversations we would see. And I guess that's the beauty of the career service. We're there to help people with that kind of thinking, because sometimes, as you've already pointed out, Ger, people come on the program and they're not necessarily sure where their journey goes next.
Yeah, no, like to that point that you made laterally, a lot of our students, indeed, they come from lots of different backgrounds. But I would say that the largest minority of students that join us, a lot of them work in the healthcare sector, and a lot of them feel that, they might be in maybe patient-facing roles, and they want to adjust their careers a little bit like the example that you used of engineers who just want to, maybe they want to move into consultancy or something like that. Maybe they want to change careers altogether. But we don't see as much of that maybe on a program such as this, which has a broad and general base. The Smurfit School offers more specific programs as well, of course, but this has a broad and general base. And we'll come back to that in a moment. The demographic, again, to touch upon the people that choose this program, we have people who may not be based in Dublin. So they may be in a position where they feel that traveling to the campus in Blackrock is not really an option for them. of course, we have people that are based in Dublin in Ireland as well, but just the rhythm of their life means that, you know, it might be, you might be able to see our on-campus experience in Belfield or in Blackrock, but the actual ability to get there may not be possible, because you might be working shift work, you might be working, you know, evening sessions at night just don't work. And what do you do if you want to join a part-time program for which the modality is like that? Well, you kind of have to look for more flexible options, and we hope that this is one of them. Of course, if you're not based in Ireland and want to get the Smurfit degree, then this is really your only option. The commute back and forth from Toronto, where Brendan is currently, or Missouri, where he's based, or indeed we've students from all over the world, different time zones. They're going to be commuting for block release weekends or anything like that. So the flexibility for a more broad international cohort is really important. And regardless of where you are based, if you have a very demanding role which consumes a lot of your time, I've kind of talked about the caring commitments a moment ago, but if you have a demanding role which takes up a lot of your time and a lot of your headspace, you don't need to add to that by going further afield, long commutes to get your learning, and the effectiveness of that learning may be affected too. So a lot of people are drawn to this program because of that. I'm going to bring on our two panelists now. First of all, why did you undertake a program, A, such as this, so a kind of the curriculum of a master's in management, and B, what drew you to taking the program online?
So mine's kind of a long journey, I suppose. So this kind of all stemmed for me from as far back as 2017, 2018. I was living in New Zealand. My undergraduate was in radiation therapy, which is obviously a very specific undergraduate. You have a very defined career path afterwards. I had a really good friend who actually worked in the Department of Management in the university over there, and I was really intrigued by everything that he taught and he spoke about. And I always wanted to do a master's, and it was him that recommended the Smurfit School to me way back then. Obviously, life gets in the way, and I finally decided to go and join and apply for the course. I think it was back in 2020. And at that stage, actually, it was before it was completely online. At that stage, you went up to the school on a Friday and a Saturday once a month. But like you said, the rhythm of life changes and evolves. And I'm definitely an example of that. So I got this job that I'm currently in Tullamore and Offaly, closer to home. But my husband was tied into an internship down in the hospital in Cork. We had a 1-year-old daughter, so we decided, recently married, let's do a long distance marriage. So for me, with a new job, establishing a new role, and a long distance marriage, I put off for a year because it just wasn't feasible for the Friday and the Saturday. I just wanted family time with the weekends, and Friday I just didn't know with a new job what the flexibility would be like. So I put off, and then it just happened to be that it was completely online then the next year, which was amazing and really suited me and made things a lot easier.
No, that's great, Amy. The example, we see this all the time, people who, you know, the rhythm of life, it intervenes in one's plans, and we hope that a program such as this still allows for people to, you know, accommodate those changes of rhythm and still undertake a program with the Smurfit School. Brendan, you offer a different perspective as someone who's not based in Ireland. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your story and why you joined the Smurfit School and why you joined this program?
Yeah. So I kind of similar to what Michael said. I started my career as a biomedical engineer, and I've been progressing into more project management roles, and wanted to be able to future-proof my career to take the next step within management. When looking at kind of like the types of programs, I really liked how UCD had it globally recognized everywhere. Like my company's headquarters are in Europe, so there is like a decent likelihood that I do have to do a stint in Europe at some point. And it also the asynchronous kind of style of it was really important to me. Like as you mentioned, I travel quite frequently to different projects within North America, and I don't think that I would be able to do a more structured master's at this time. So it really enables me to grow my career while still working my current role.
Yeah, and we'd see that a lot from our internationally based students, our students based outside of Ireland, that, you know, they're in a position where they are able to commit to a program such as this, but obviously upping sticks and going to another country is a very different prospect, depending on where you are in your career and your, just general time of your life. So having the option there for taking the learning resources for every module asynchronously can be very useful. So look, thank you very much, Brendan and Amy. I'm going to come back to you in a few moments to talk about the nuts and bolts of being an online student. So we've got your backstory and why you joined. We'll talk in a moment about the actual being on the program, which I'm sure everyone who has joined is really interested in if they foresee themselves applying for the program and being a student on it from September. The modules on this program, there's 12 modules on the program. It's divided into 2 years of 6, so it's a 2-year program. The first year, I don't think there's much benefit in me discussing each of the modules. A, it'll take a lot of time. B, in the session that I mentioned earlier, for which the QR code, I'll put it up on screen here now again for the recording. That's where I really talk about the ins and outs of the modules. Suffice to say that this program is designed for non-business graduates. In the first year of the program, we need you to get up to speed in all of the different disciplines or subject areas of business that we teach in the UCD College of Business. So the likes of marketing and HR and business management, accounting, digital business and the like. So that's where the first year really is dedicated to bringing up to speed in those areas, albeit to a master's level. And then the second year of the program, this is a master's in management after all. So that's where you dive further into the likes of global strategic management, your project management module, which is called Managing Innovative Projects, the business research project. Those are in the second year of your program. We feel that you would not be able to jump into some of those modules until such time you had been given the opportunity to develop that broad base. This is a broad general program, one of the most broad in general that the Smurfit School offers. So that's why the program is designed the way it is, and that's why the modules are spaced out the way they are. It's not random. It's very little, very little on this program is done randomly, but that's why the modules are assigned the way they are. Big question, I'm sure you're all wondering also is, okay, so Brendan mentioned there this program is asynchronous, okay? So does that mean that everything is online and you pursue it at your own speed, or is there live elements? And the answer is, well, a little bit of everything, all of the above. About 80% of the program, 80% of the learning resources of the program that you view, that's all pre-recorded, that section of it. So it's developed with our lecturers in our studio here in Quinn Business School in Belfield in Dublin. And our students pursue those resources asynchronously or at a time of their choosing. Now, the calendar is kind of interspersed with assessment deadlines. So it does have a structure in the sense that because part-time students, we feel they do need a structure to keep them going to work towards goals. So it's not completely open-ended in the sense that, okay, well, I want to start my first module now and it could take me a year to complete. No, that's not how we do it. You do 3 modules concurrently in a trimester, so at the same time. And we have it spaced out, and we have the lecturers giving their suggested pace of study as well. So that all combines to offer the flexibility that is given by doing an online program, but also the solid structure that allows someone to get to the end of a program and achieve success. And we feel that is really important as well. In terms of assessment, people are assessed in lots of different ways on the program. Our students are assessed via business simulations, presentations, group work, more traditional essay submissions. There's an entire research module in second year, but there's also other bits and pieces of research for other modules. And then you have more what you would expect from a program such as this, kind of online assessment in terms of, exams and quizzes and things of that kind of nature. The vast majority of the program is continuous assessment. This is an online program. We don't ask you to come in person to do any exams in Dublin or anything like that. That would completely divide the point of having an online program if you're based abroad. I'll be coming to Dublin to do some exams, so we don't do that. So any timed pieces of assessment are done online. But as I said, the learning resources, they can be all pursued asynchronously. There is I mentioned that asynchronous piece is about 80% of the program. Now, it depends on the module. That will vary from module to module. The other 20% is delivered live with your lecturers. So you do have a touchstone piece with your lecturers. Those are live sessions which are carried out on Zoom for the time being. They're on Zoom. We may be moving to Microsoft Teams in the near future, but more of that anon. They're on Zoom for now. Those are recorded. For anybody that can't make it, and we're very conscious that we have people, as in Brendan's case, who is based on the far side of the Atlantic, but we also have lots of other students who are based in West Asia, Southeast Asia, and as far away as Australia and New Zealand. So, you know, it's going to be difficult for those people to make a session that is scheduled for 7:30 p.m. in Ireland, but that's absolutely no problem. Those sessions are recorded and they're made available to the entire class, regardless if you attended a live session or not. So we have lots of people who attend the live session and then watch back the recording for the extra revision purposes. So we have a lot of people that do that. Brendan, what, may I ask, do you think about the realities of being an online student on this program? How have you found studying online versus what you may have been more used to at undergraduate level or in high school, for instance?
Yeah, I think it is a little different than being in person. And I think that the one caveat is you do have to kind of rely on the structure, like how you said, of the suggested study pace, because with the risk of the asynchronous is that it's really easy for you to fall behind if you're not a little disciplined. But as you mentioned, there's a lot of resources to help keep you going along the way. And I think one good thing about this program is there's a ton of group work. So I was meeting with classmates multiple times every week. So it really didn't feel like you're kind of alone in it or in any way. You know, you build really good connections, which is really good for your next steps with your career of just broadening your connection pool kind of globally.
Absolutely. And it's something we take very seriously. And again, nothing done randomly. We do it very deliberately because obviously a management program is going to have elements of group work in it. Managing other people is a very, very important part of the entire learning experience. But we're conscious that studying online, the university itself can almost become a fairly abstract concept if you pursue all your learning resources asynchronously. If you watch all of the live recordings back as a recording, the live sessions as a recording back, because of time zone differences or commitment issues, all of the reasons I mentioned at the start why you'd be undertaking an online program in the first place. If we didn't have an element of group work, then that entire program can become quite an isolated experience, and we don't allow that to happen. Part of my role, and I'll talk more about my role in a moment, is to ensure as best as possible is that the whole student community is as connected as is possible. Now, we're not going to say that it is the exact same as seeing the whites of other people's eyes in an in-person environment. However, we do our very best via discussion boards, group work, other types of sessions. There's the Global Leadership Program and other parts of the Smurfit School that come into that, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But Brendan has really touched upon one of the most important elements of the interconnectivity of all of our students, and that's in group work with students. Amy, how have you found being a student online of this program?
Yeah, very much the same as Brendan there. Yeah, I think it's lovely that you can do it at your own pace because, of course, like life gets in at the way at times. And I think as well, like you said, and Red mentioned, it's great to have that structure to keep you on track because there is continuous assessment, which means you are continuously busy and there's not as much pressure towards the end of a semester. But if something comes up, you obviously there's that leeway to kind of be like, okay, I didn't get that lecture, that topic done this week according to the recommended, but I will try and get it and do a bit extra next week. So it's great that way. In terms of the group work, I do agree. It's strange when you're used to being in that in-person environment as your undergraduate or your secondary school and all those kind of things. But like you mentioned as well, the group work definitely does bring the group together, and the way that your group changes in each semester. So you do get to know different people on group from different countries, different backgrounds as well, is very interesting, like different career backgrounds. So yeah, thought it was very rewarding and great. Yeah.
Thank you, Amy. Michael, in terms of group work, let's pardon me, let's put to one side the fact that this is an online program.
Mm-hmm.
And let's put to one side that this is a part-time program and it's pursued over 2 years as opposed to a full-time program, which is pursued face-to-face. How important is group work? I know it can be a bit of a pain in terms of arranging different people to be at the same place at the same time online in the case of this program. But how important is that for one's career going forward?
Very. In fact, it's probably one of the key takeaways from a management program. It's the challenges you face in trying to bring everybody to the same point. The goal of the team, trying to, in many ways, deal with all the different personalities in the team, the different ways of working, the different cultures. Obviously, as an international online program, you're going to have people from different backgrounds potentially in your team. So all of that brings a wonderful experience that is absolutely immediately applicable in any job then when you go either in your day-to-day or if you change to move into maybe a more international focused company, maybe a multinational, something similar to that where there's a lot of exposure to international markets. So being able to work in a multidisciplinary, multifunctional, with a cross-functional team, people from different backgrounds, it's such a wonderful learning that is probably not even promoted as much as it should be, because it is a key learning. And the way that people learn from each other on these programs is such a very important part of the experience as well. So it's that tacit knowledge that team members can bring into a group project really is so such a valuable experience and valuable learning for all people involved in these teams.
And to pick up on your last point, that is especially true for a program like this. And Brendan and Amy, you can chime in on this point if you so wish. The fact that this has a very broad curriculum, the first year, this is for non-business graduates. The first year of the program is where you build up all your knowledge in all of the business areas. That leads to an intake, a cohort of students who come from all sorts of backgrounds. Yes, I mentioned that one of the larger minorities on the program would be people who work in healthcare, but we have engineers, we have teachers, we have people who work in general education, we have people who are patient-facing healthcare workers and broader members of the allied health services. Any occupation you can think of, civil servants, members of the police, members of the armed forces join this program, former professional sports people who come to a realization that, okay, I need to plan ahead, and people such as that who are time poor, and all of the things that I mentioned about 20 minutes ago, they apply to them. So taking an online program, taking a part-time program works for them. That leads to groups which are created, again, created by myself, and nothing done randomly. We ensure that there is as much diversity in the groups as is possible. We ensure that insofar as is possible, everybody gets to work with as many people in the class as is numerically and mathematically possible. Sometimes, when you're in a face-to-face environment, the person you sit beside on the first day becomes your best friend and you're in a group with them for the following year, the following 2 years. And let's face it, maybe you wish that wasn't the case, or maybe you wish that you had sat somewhere else on this first day. All of that is not applicable for a program such as this because you are placed in as diverse a group as possible. Sometimes, depending on the size of the class, you'll be working with similar students now and again, but generally speaking, we like to achieve as broad a diversity as is possible because, as Michael says, a lot of the tacit knowledge comes from your peers. You'll get a lot of knowledge from the learning resources, but picking stuff up by osmosis almost from your peers is really important. You will approach, if you're an engineer, you will approach a problem in a very different way, maybe, and our two panelists are very good examples of people who come from two very disparate backgrounds. If they were in a group together, they would approach maybe a problem or a task in two very different ways. And one of them may think, do you know what, that's a really good way of approaching it. And then the counter to that is the exact same would be the true vice versa. So that is part of the reason that we have group work, as well as just building a stronger foundation for an online program. When I suggest to people, okay, we have this online program that's offered from the Smurfit School, and people say, well, do you know what, I'm not very good with technology. That's a little bit daunting for me, frankly. That's a reply I get all the time. I want to reassure you that, if you are in a position where you think maybe your equipment is not up to date, or, you think that your digital literacy is not to the point where you'll be able to undertake a program such as this. I want to try and break down those barriers by reassuring you that the program is designed very much with universal design learning principles in place. We have our business e-learning team are on hand to answer questions about any aspects of digital literacy. There's lots of smaller courses in, say, for instance, some of the Microsoft Office suite of software that you can take completely external to this program, but under the umbrella of UCD. There's lots of ways to build up your digital literacy. So if you are a little bit daunted by the prospect of taking on a program online, don't be. And I'm here on hand as well to answer any questions. I'll talk a little bit more of that in a moment. We kind of talked about building your community. We don't claim that you build your community in the exact same way that you would in a face-to-face master's program, because that's simply not the case. And we know that. However, we do our very best to replicate and simulate all of the scenarios that would naturally come about in a face-to-face environment, walking down the corridor or going to the coffee shop. That's how networking kind of emerges in a face-to-face program. We simulate that via things like group working and all of the other functions within the modules, but also in the exterior kind of programs that take place in the Smurfit School that you can do extracurricularly. On that, as a Smurfit student, you will be from September automatically enrolled to the Global Leadership Program. This is a new innovation for this year. Previously, it was an option to undertake it, but now everybody is going to be enrolled in the Global Leadership Program, and you can opt to complete it or not complete it as the case may be. The Global Leadership Program is kind of our gold standard extracurricular. It's what we bring together all the extracurricular activities under kind of one umbrella of one certificate. And that really allows people to develop the other things they need to exhibit on a CV or something like that. Like, there will be people that do masters in management all over the world. It's what you need to show on top of that. What can you talk about in an interview? What can you talk about in scenarios, say challenging scenarios in work? Is everything that you will have learned in the master applicable? Well, yeah, but also maybe something that you would have learned or experienced extracurricularly may be important too. And we have that in spades via the Global Leadership Program, via the UCD Advantage Program, and similar extracurricular programs such as this. Before I come back to Brennan and Amy, Michael, do you have anything to suggest with regards to those extracurricular activities? Obviously, the Career Network come into this in a very big way. So perhaps actually this is a good opportunity to also talk a little bit more about what your unit of the College of Business does specifically for our graduate students.
Sure. I think, Ger, you've hit on probably one of the core standout features of studying at UCD Smurfit. And then that would be the GLP, the Global Leadership Program, which is an employability award, one of two that our cohorts can opt to take. It is important to say it's optional. I mean, it is not mandatory in any way. However, it would be true to say that if you're looking to stand out, to create some difference in terms of being a potential candidate for an employer, they really love to see what else you do outside of the classroom. It is, applicable to the early career folk as much as it is applicable to the senior guys, because in some way the employability award is there for an employer to say, well, let me understand a little bit more about the personality here. Who is this person? What have they been involved in? What is the human behind the grade? So this is an opportunity for you as a student to be able to display some of your own interests that potentially are also in a skills development aspect. So it could be volunteering, it could be communications training, it could be anything to do with projects maybe that don't fit within the curriculum that you think might be of interest. And that is something that is strongly recommended to all our students, particularly in a challenging recruitment market today. Other things then that online students can avail of are career service at UCD Smurfit. We focus very much on the career management, the personal career management aspect of our students' development. So we have a number of online tools that we use with our on-campus students, as well as our online students. That varies from tools such as our resume builders. It could be something to do with, if you're looking at consulting, a case coach tool, which really helps people prepare for those consultancy type jobs in general management. And also we have our one-to-one career appointments, which are not just based on campus, but we also we offer the opportunity to all of our students to select an online option. So nobody is left behind, nobody is left out, and we are definitely very keen to engage with as many of our online students as possible. So those are some ways that people can get involved and in some way engage with the career service at UCD Smurfit.
And on the careers appointments that you mentioned there laterally, Michael, I know that they, for instance, and Amy, I'd say you might be able to speak to this. When you're on a 2-year program, the first year of the program is very much getting used to it. It's very much, okay, I have a lot to take on here, especially for this program when you're undertaking effectively that broad basis upon which the second year is built upon. Sometimes a career outlook, very prominent, obviously, in one's own mind when you join a program such as this, to the forefront, then it naturally slips away in the first year of our study. So if you're joining us and you find yourself in that situation, that is absolutely the norm for a program such as this. But then build back up a little bit in second year, and as you get closer to the finish line, those thought processes that were in the back, to the forefront of your mind when you started the program, they start to return to the forefront of your mind. So Michael, I believe that there's no like cliff edge in terms of careers appointments from, say, you submit your last piece of work. Is there a period of time afterwards where you can still engage with the careers?
Yeah, it's on an average basis, it's up to about 2 years post graduation. Okay. So we particularly for part-time programs, we would see a significant number of people come to us once the program has finished. Now, do I encourage that? No. I expect people to engage with the career service from day one, but then that's just me. But I do understand that people are, they have to manage their time. And sometimes, in this regard, people will come to us after a program is finished. But so there is we say 2 years, but that is there to try and encourage people to engage earlier. But yeah, in the main, it's 2 years after graduation.
I definitely agree with Michael and the sentiment that you have, that when you engage with the careers network during the program, it can refocus and solidify your focus in terms of what you are doing, the content itself, but also the motivation of why you're doing the program in the first place. And that is really important. So I would very much echo Michael's sentiment there. In terms of the flexibility, Brendan and Amy, maybe I'll start with you, Brendan, on this one. You're a year in, you finish your first year, you've kind of undertaken those broad introductory, I say in inverted commas because they're to a master's level. How have you found the flexibility of the program and the general experience of the first year of your studies so far?
Yeah, I think it's been quite well. To your point, the first year is a very broad general thing, and I see the material kind of come to fruition in my day to day quite often. Like we had our HR course, our corporate finance, marketing. It plays in quite well to a lot of companies' structures and how we do our day to day. So I really liked it. The flexibility of it, I think, is very critical. I was able to kind of commit to, because the meeting times would often be a little bit around lunch for me. So I was able to commit to being able to do those in person, or not in person, but the like Zoom lectures, and they worked well. The team setting worked really well. And everyone, like I don't think that a single person had the exact same background of like their career all around the world. It was a really unique experience. And when you get into these larger companies, like I think that is a very critical thing. Since I every day I'll be working with people in Europe and Asia, all across North America, and to be able to gather experience on how you can effectively communicate to different people on different time schedules, different cultures, different experiences. It's very important skill set to learn, and I think UCD, this program does really good at developing that.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you, Brendan. And Amy, what about yourself in terms of the flexibility that was, on offer for the program? You can pursue the learning resources for all of the modules. Obviously, some of the assessment pieces are done a little bit differently, but in terms of pursuing the learning of the program flexibly, how has that impacted upon maybe even your ability to undertake a program such as this in the first place?
For me, it's been amazing, to be honest, the absolute flexibility of it. And I suppose I've already mentioned that even just to get myself started took a while. And then for me, during the first year, I got pregnant with my second child. You go through the tiredness. And like I said before, the flexibility of not meeting your assessment guidelines and all of those targets, but of course, being able to do the lectures at a time that suits you.
Yeah.
And for me as well, because I had my little girl then in August, just before I was due to start the second year. I reached out to Jared here, and so accommodating, understood that I wanted to take the year out, spend the time with my daughter. I wasn't ready to go back into that intensity. When I want to do something, I want to give it 100%. And for me, it was really important to take that year out, step back, and then come back in September. And I think that was just streamlined so easily for me. I couldn't thank everyone enough for that. Then in terms of the flexibility of like contacting the staff whenever you had a question about an assignment or anything, people were always available to help you. And same with your peers. Even though there is group work, that's the one thing that kind of, you obviously have a set time that you have to agree on to meet up, maybe to do an online recorded presentation or have a discussion about, for example, the business simulation in the last semester. You have to meet up and make those decisions, but everyone understands the reason why people are doing this course. We all understand each other have lives outside of this course and whatever that may be. And I think everyone wants to make this as easy experience and be as flexible with their time as possible.
Yeah, you've hit on so many things there. Let me think. When part-time students' life intervenes, both brilliantly in your case, Amy, but also for some students, maybe not so brilliantly. Life will happen. 2 years is a long time. 2 years is an even longer time for mature students in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s and 60s. Taking time off, the ability to know that leave of absences and things like that, extenuating circumstances, all of that is baked into the program and the policies of the university. So if you're in a situation where that arises, please don't worry. Please come to me as soon as is possible and that you're comfortable in doing so. When that kind of stuff arises, we're not going to be at the forefront of your mind, which is absolutely right, and it should be the case. But then when you're able to revisit, okay, I need to sort the situation out with UCD, that's where you come back in touch with us and we can sort things out. With regards to what Brendan said there about everybody coming from different backgrounds in the group, that's brilliant to hear, and it's really kind of case positive of how the hard work we put into making the groups as diverse as is possible. And by all means, there's Q&A there at the bottom. Please do type in your questions. I know they've been flying in, and Tina has been answering some of them live and keeping some back then for our Q&A, which will start in about 2 or 3 minutes time. Just want to briefly mention and elaborate a little bit more about what I do. I'm the program manager and learning support officer. So I do all of the things you would imagine a university program manager does in terms of making sure people are in the right space at the right time. Albeit online, so that is a little bit of a different role than a face-to-face program manager, and keeping the lights on literally and doors unlocked and all that kind of stuff, which is really, really important for a face-to-face program. But you kind of have similar, making sure Zoom links are correct and making sure if there's stuff are right on our virtual learning environment, Brightspace, and working with our business e-learning team to make sure everything is tip-top and ready for our students. I'm also your learning support officer, so I am qualified to answer any questions that you have with regard to your learning in general. And I can talk for a long time, I won't, about all of the different things that come up with our part-time students. Trust us, everything you can imagine has come up over the long window of time that this program has been in existence. It's been online for the last 3 or 4 years. But before that, it was in a more traditional block release modality. We've heard it all, and we do our very best to accommodate all of our students, make sure that they achieve success or as close to that bar as they perceive. and it's our job to help them get to that point. Before we go to Q&A, entry requirements, you will have seen this online. I'm going to put a QR code up here on screen now for the recording. Entry requirements, you need a minimum second-class honours degree in a non-business discipline. In exceptional circumstances, we do accept applications from non-degree holders with significant management work experience. The deadline for applications for this program is late summer, or when we reach a cap of students. So whichever happens first, I'd recommend that you get in before that cap is anywhere near reached. So if you are thinking about applying for this program, by all means, I would recommend that you do so as soon as is possible. It's like if you are in a situation where you don't have a degree and you are putting in an application on the basis of significant work experience, then you really need to get your application in soon, because that deadline is not the end of summer, it's the end of July. It's the start of August. Okay, end of July, start of August. And conditional offers are possible. So say, for instance, if you are completing a degree in engineering or health sciences or something like that, and you want to move into this program, you can apply now, receive a conditional offer on the basis of your results in your final year of your undergraduate, albeit this time of year, most people are at the point of receiving all of those good news emails when you get your final results for your program. Yeah, so we'll move on to the Q&A now. Was there any questions that were kind of more open-ended and would benefit from a more discussion, Tina, in the last few we have?
Absolutely, Ger. Thank you for that. So one of the questions, which would definitely be more general, could you please advise on how the exams are taken? So I know you had touched on that earlier. Online, do we need to go to any centre? That is not the case. So predominantly the assessment is coursework and continuous assessment.
Predominantly continuous assessment, as one of the panelists mentioned, can't remember which, but yeah, continuous assessment predominantly. There are some timed elements of assessment for which they're more time constrained. It will very much depend on the module. The flip side of having such a broad curricula is the fact that different modules are assessed in very different ways. Accounting is assessed in a very different way to human resource management. So how you're assessed in accounting may bear little resemblance to how you are assessed for human resource management. And you could that is understandable because of the very different ways that the curriculum is designed. But to answer that person's question, we're not going to, you don't need to book a flight to Dublin to go to an exam for sure.
Another great question, Jared, is I think actually Amy touched on it earlier, just in terms of group work and kind of timings. So, and this really has to do with time zones. I guess if you've got somebody in Australia and got somebody in the States, how does that work with group work?
It can be a challenge, no doubt about it. And Brennan would speak to that in terms of, and Amy too, if Amy was working with people who are based abroad, you need to come to a consensus. And we are very cognizant of the fact that people are joining from all over the world. We're also unapologetically cognizant of the fact that in the working world, you will be sending emails and working with people who are based in very different time zones to your own. So there is an onus upon the students to come to arrangements, and that's part and parcel of group work. Something we are going to give a far greater focus on, however, in the creation of group works, is to create more time zone friendly situations where we will try avoid people that are working, say, in the Americas, maybe not place them in the same group as someone who is based in Southeast Asia or Australia, because there is only so much that can be overcome through consensus. So that's something we'll definitely be working on a little bit more into the coming years. But yeah, generally speaking, most of our students based in Ireland and Europe, so they get on okay. Generally speaking, a group may have a couple of people who are based. Groups are generally 4 or 5, so you might have one person based in a very different time zone to your own. It's just about working around their availability, and they won't always be available, but that's fine too. You need to come about different ways of working together asynchronously as well.
And just one related to that as well, Ger, just in terms of the, so I know there's asynchronous learning, and we have one, but for the live sessions, the more live sessions, will they be recorded? So if you're in a different time zone, you will be able to see them later.
Yes, it's the short answer to that.
Yeah, perfect.
They are recorded. There's a time window in which, and this is all explained at the start, which you can opt to have any contributions you made yourself if you would prefer them maybe not to be added to the recording that is shared with the group. That is all inbuilt into the policy. And they are shared on the second working day after the session itself. So yeah, anybody that can't make it live, they can watch back the recording.
The last question then I have is in relation to scholarships, but really that is just the main scholarship page, which is www.ucd.ie/students/scholarships.
Yep, absolutely, yes.
So that's kind of more of the more general, the less specific, or it's kind of UCD specific scholarships.
Great. A question has come in via Q&A, and I might put it to you, Brendan. It's a question that has come in just in the last moment. I might put it to you if that's okay. It's about the general time commitment for a program such as this. We have it on our website, and if anyone asks, I kind of said, well, it depends. It depends on the time at the trimester, and it depends on your own attitude towards study. It's not always quantity, it's quality. And there's a lot of, there's a caveat placed on this, but we say generally between 12 and 14 or 16 hours a week, and that will vary depending on the week. But what's your experience, Brendan, in terms of the workload? Does it vary from different points of the trimester? Does it ever become unmanageable, or is it all about being as careful as possible with your own time management?
Yeah, I think that it really goes down onto your time management. If you stay disciplined with it, I don't think that much of it is very unreasonable, and the structure is very easy for you to complete it. All of your classmates are there to help you out. All of the professors are there. I think that it really comes down to staying disciplined with it. But when we are looking at I think it does naturally drift a little bit more intense towards the end of the year, but that's just because you have your final exams for like finance or your final projects or anything like that. And I had the experience of like some of our groups. I had some classmates in Southeast Asia, in Dublin, and then like me in North America. And it just is like really, I think that the key to success of it is open communication. We were all very upfront of like when we were struggling with having time or not, and we worked to be able to work asynchronously to complete stuff. We were both everyone was all flexible of like how can you be able to meet to be able to have the best chance of success. And I know even you as well with my stuff. There's a point where I was commissioning a new facility for us in Mexico, and it made my like activity of like how much I was on Brightspace drift a little bit, and then you reached out on it, So I think it's one thing that's good to note of like I think at UCD there's really an emphasis that like the whole team really cares about you being successful in the program. There's a lot of resources that are there to help you out to make sure that it's going smooth. And that like just because you are online doesn't mean that you're necessarily like alone out there. So it's quite a good experience.
What you mentioned there, Brendan, it infers that part of my role is to just keep an eye on learning metrics. Like I don't like lecturers can see them from their own views on Brightspace, but it doesn't feed into grading or anything like that. I do it from a very pastoral sense. Brendan mentioned there an occasion where stuff was happening in work, and I just wanted to check in with him to make sure just everyone okay, and that will happen from time to time for every student. And there's progress calls where I initiate a chat with everybody every trimester, or at least every academic year, and any other times throughout the 2 years of the program, initiating just the back and forth and chance to make sure people don't feel like an island on this program. It's more of an archipelago of people on the island. Michael, I'm conscious of time. So, Michael, do you have any last words on any advice you'd give to a student if they are kind of sitting on the fence a little bit, and from a careers perspective, they're thinking, maybe is now the right time to do a master's? Maybe not. They'll know themselves what is best. But is there anything from a careers perspective that you would give advice to people kind of considering at this stage?
Yeah, I think certainly from my experience of working with late early career, so it's kind of maybe with 4, 5 to 7 years work experience in particular.
Yeah.
We're very keen to encourage them to grab every experience they can once they join. I know online it might be a little bit difficult than when you're on campus, but it is those extra, almost those, how you pushed yourself, those stories about how you engaged. You're able to tell that story, and that is something that will impress a potential employer or a hiring manager or somebody if you're looking for a promotion. It's how you push yourself and push your boundaries and what you learn from that. I think that's key. And to go back to a point I made earlier on, particularly on part-time programs, that ability to learn from your classmates and build that's really your probably primary network. And in the world of work today, in terms of probably even more in the world of recruitment, we see people being hired through their networks, and you have a ready-made network once you join this program. And then you have the alumni, which will be the last point I'll make. You have access to an entire database almost through LinkedIn, through our alumni team, etc. But you as a Smurfit student, you have an open door to all of those alumni to reach out to them, and they will always be there, in most cases, to help you along the way. Why? Because they've been there before you. So it's a wonderful opportunity for them to give back. So as I said, in summary, just jump in, grab everything you can along the way, and enjoy the ride.
Absolutely. Be an endorser of the grab everything on the way, because there's a lot to grab. There's a lot of extracurricular stuff in the Smurfit School, and I would always advise people that there's an investment made either by yourself or by a company on your behalf in this program. Absolutely do everything to get the most out of that investment. Okay, that's it for today. I want to thank my panelists, Brendan and Amy, and Michael. I want to thank my colleague, Dr. Christina Burke, who's been ably looking at the questions and answer session. Thank you very much, Tina, for all your help. Thank you for joining. If you want any more information, please just look us up, send me an email. You have my email address from the invite reminder from yesterday. Any questions, big or large, small or little, just send them on to me. Okay, so enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.